During the last few days, an earthquake beyond comparison has struck Lisboa. The force with which this event struck was far greater than what we are used to experiencing, and the citizens of Lisboa have suffered greatly under the disaster. Many are buried in the rubble of buildings, with even more losing their home and shelter. Without reinvestment, Lisboa would certainly take decades to recover properly, and we should take proper care of the affected area. How's it, everyone, and welcome back to episode 7 of our Portugal playthrough. Where we left off last time, we had just been struck by what appears to be a massive earthquake. We haven't done anything, obviously, hence the event is still on screen here. So the options are twofold. We can basically say curses, take it on the chin, and it suggests we will lose a severe amount of prosperity, population, and some buildings will be destroyed. Or we can help the poor souls, spend 157 gold, and same sort of outcome, except our investment in the location will have an easier time rebuilding. Now, it's not particularly clear what the actual outcome difference will be. However, I think it's worth spending the money, even though it will put us into debt again, to try and prepare as strongly or to recover as much as possible from this disaster. So we will help the poor souls. Alright, let's assess the damage. So our troops in our navy have been hit, but perhaps more importantly is what's happened to our buildings. Now, it's not exactly easy to see. I was hoping I might be able to get a bit of a comparison about what's been hit and what buildings we've lost. I can't remember, to be completely honest, what we had in here, but I can see that we've got an enormous smack in the face with respect to prosperity, so we're going to have to take young Fernando off and put him on improve the recovery effort for Extremadura firstly, and then we'll probably shift him over to Ribatejo afterwards. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to swap Fernando for Fernando. The much better version, Fernando 2.0, is going to come in. So let's swap him out. It costs 5 stability, but we've got a little bit of a supply at the moment, and his stats are just so much better that I think it's worthwhile. Might decrease our crown power because he's a member of the nobility, whereas Fernando is a member of the crown. But I don't think it's going to be enough to drop us below the 30% mark, so it's okay. Okay, so we've obviously had to take a loan to cover the cost of the reparations, but we will pay that off as soon as we can just to get that back up. Yeah, so a bunch of our locations, understandably, have been absolutely devastated by the earthquake, primarily Lisbon, which is causing some big issues with respect to promotion speed, production efficiency, food production, population growth, and so on. Development is a bad one as well. So we need to try and correct this, which is obviously why we've stuck Fernando 2.0 on the recovery effort. So we do have the ability to marry Pedro again, because Elizabeth died in the Black Plague. So shall we have a look and see if anyone worthy is around? We could marry him against Inez, who, if you've seen episode 2, there's an actual genuine story here where he really did fall in love. From a role-playing element, I think I will do this, just because this is actually what happened in real life and there was a whole story behind that, so let's marry him to Inez. Oh, we've got a grandson as well, João. I think that means John in Portuguese. So the lineage is secure. It's a shame, really. I was trying to think if there's a way to divert it to Beatrice, because she's really good, and then her husband is really good as well, and I imagine the children will be very competent, but I don't think there's any way I can actually do it to change the succession law. I've been looking around. Oh, it's here. So if we were to do this, let's just have a look and see how it would cost. Gosh, it's expensive. 50 legitimacy, 50 stability. So it would cost a hell of a lot for us to do it, but we could do it. So maybe we try and save up for that. That might be a shout. Naturally, I'm going to forget about this and then spend the stability changing laws and things, but it's certainly something to think about. I suppose a good way to maybe keep an eye on it is firstly, let's pin Beatrice, and then we'll also try and keep an eye out to see if she has any kids, and if she does, are those children very competent, in which case we can redirect the throne, because it will mean that the rulers are better over time. Pay off some of this debt. They're all exactly the same, so we'll just pay off any of them just to start getting it down. On the bright side, it does look like that we are spreading institutions very effectively. So it's not loads, but we're almost 50% the way towards banking. We look at Castile on the other hand, they've got nothing, and the spread does radiate outwards from where it spawns. So we are quite far away, but we are getting a bit of spread, which I'm happy with. We're doing better than most of our neighbours. Also, thinking about it, the fact that other nations such as Tunis are going to hopefully embrace banking soon means that trading just with the Tunis market will also give us that spread, which is fantastic. We want to try and trade not just with Genoa, but with all nations that have embraced banking. And we've got a diplomatic action and also an event. So we'll deal with the event first. The risks of trade. Trade over large distances can be risky, if profitable. The weather, brigands and pirates remain a threat on land as well as on the water. Normally, the burghers can cope with a certain amount of mishaps, and they have their own ways to protect themselves and ensure their cargo. Lately, however, things have been going badly for a large number of merchant families, and some are on the brink of bankruptcy. It may be prudent to offer some financial compensation to get them back on their feet. Options are suspend an enormous amount of money and get some estate satisfaction. I don't think we can do that. They knew what they were getting into. It really irritates them, but their equilibrium's quite high and it will just push up over time. I think we're going to have to accept that, to be honest. We don't have the money to give them 130 ducats. They knew what they were getting into. So I've noticed that Castile is preparing an exploration into Jollof, which I think is all the way down here, so we do really need to try and get our skates on and get exploring. We just don't have the money right now, so one of the things that I think we can do is try and ride off of their back and steal the maps off of them if we can. So we'll try and build a spy network. I don't have great hopes in it being successful, but we may as well try. We've got a spy network of 12, we need 40. Oh, fantastic news. The Black Death is gone. End of the Black Death. It seems that the last remnants of the plague have finally disappeared. Are those of us that survived the cursed or the blessed? Did anyone survive? 534,000 people. And our recovery effort's finished as well, so we can swap him over to the other location, Ribatejo. I don't think this will take very long because it was mainly Lisbon that was affected. I actually noticed that there's a map mode called, I think it's called Danger actually, Dangers, and it shows you the different potential risks of a place. So this one is also an earthquake zone. I think these are all earthquakes. But it might be useful for anyone who didn't know that, because I didn't until very recently. So I've had a look at our crown power and I can see that our current level of debt is only decreasing our crown power by 3.32%. So I'm not as concerned about paying it off as immediately as before. What I am perhaps more motivated to do is to actually use up some of these burghers, because there's a lot of unemployed burghers here. So I'm just going to have a look and build something that seems profitable, and the first one seems reasonable, the Saltpeter Guild. So looking at it, we don't have any saltpeter in our country in terms of natural resources, so building this will actually start the good as being something that can be traded within the Lisbon market. And we've had a visit from some shady people. This is going to be something to do with the spy network in Castile. A few slightly shady looking characters have appeared at our court offering their service to the king. They claim to be willing and able to do things that any proper ruler would never deign to do publicly. It is an offer. Oh, it's Tunis. We can refuse. Why is it giving it to us in Tunis, man? That would have been so amazing for us to do it in Lisbon. In Castile, sorry. I suppose it's because they're a rival of ours. We don't need the spy network in Tunis, especially not for the money, so we'll just get the prestige. That's such a shame, I got all excited. Oh, Christovao is dead. He was the general of the army. I got more worried than I needed to there. I don't think he's that important. So the two options I see are Fernando, our son, not good Fernando, or Joan. I think we can go for Joan. I'm not too bothered about having Fernando become our ruler, as long as we can take benefit from these guys and use their skills in the cabinet. It's all right. So what can we do with his abilities here? I think just for the moment we're going to push him on to, where is it now? Increase development, develop province, and we'll increase development in the capital. I do want to have an uptick of stability, but I'm just looking at the development here, and we get greater institution growth with high development, and I am really trying to push towards getting banking as soon as possible, as well as the other institutions really, but banking primarily. Okay, so Tunis has embraced banking, and Renee is 16. So she's not bad as well, but we could probably marry her off because her stats aren't fantastic, and that could help get a bit of prestige. Maybe an alliance with someone. Let's have a look there. But I'm not particularly bothered about keeping her in the court. He's quite good, isn't he? Philippe d'Artois. Go on then, let's do it. Royal marriage to Philip. In fact, that's actually brought him to our court, which is cool. So he's quite good as well. So we're doing some very clever marriages to bring people of quality to our court to use them and their skills. Alright, so two things. I've looked at the estates, and I think I want to give the burghers another, what was this called, privilege. And specifically I want to give them this one here, guild investments. So it does increase their power quite substantially, but I'm not too worried about that, because I want to push the burghers anyway. But it does do two good things for me, pushing towards innovative and pushing towards capital economy. And I'll explain that in just a second, but let's grant them this privilege. The guilds have agreed to divert a portion of their funds toward making improvements to our production process. Though many of these ventures will likely fail, a few may yield breakthrough results that can reshape our capital economy. So simply put, pushes towards innovative, pushes towards capital economy. Now why is that good? Because firstly, I think we want to push towards innovative. It reduces the cost of embracing institutions, which is what we want to do, particularly in the immediate sense with banking. It also increases literacy, and yes, it makes stability a bit more expensive to purchase, but in terms of a trade-off, I think it's probably quite worthwhile. Traditionalist doesn't seem that good. It increases our culture, but I'm not too bothered about that, to be honest. And then secondly, we spoke about it before, but we want to push towards capital economy, because capital economy is just better for what we're looking to achieve. Reduces building costs, reduces interest, increases production efficiency. So there are a few other things that we'll have to try and get rid of in order to continue to push towards capital, but for now I think that's a good step. And also we now have a parliament, so again we will go towards Lisbon just for the crown power. And what options do we have? I think market regulations is what we want to go for here. So we'll go for it. 30%. Okay, and how can we get it over the line? I think increasing opinion is fine. So that's 40. We'll leave it for now. We'll keep an eye on it and hopefully get some events that push us over the line. Villa Real changes stance in debate. It seems that the Hortes Gerais members of Villa Real, where is that? In the middle, have finally realised how beneficial the currently debated proposal would be to them if it passed. Their support for our cause is most welcome. So we get 5 prestige, which is great, and also 5 support. So this is one of the reasons why I was holding off a little bit on granting privileges, because if we do get something else that is positive, we might not, but we might, then we've got the 50% we need. The nobility are worried. Members of our nobility with estates close to the frontier are concerned that we are neglecting our defences, because we are. They have voiced their worries to all and sundry, but attack is the best form of defence, so it just pushes us towards offensive. Annoyingly, take a massive stability hit, and it's completely unavoidable. So that's frustrating. Yeah, so we're building up a little bit of money at the moment, and we do have the option of spending it to build some production buildings, try and increase our income. But to be honest, with the institutions almost on their way, I'm thinking about holding on to some of the cash so that we can embrace the institution as quick as possible. That does remind me that we're going to need stability to embrace the institution, so I'm going to flip Fernando 2.0 on to stability so that we can start growing our stability. It's particularly apt time as well because we're obviously in negative because the nobility were whining. Alright, so we have an excess of diplomats at the moment, and I was just looking at some of the options, and I think the one that is the most appealing to me is to get an alliance with England, and naturally the game has to interrupt me. So let's read this first. The burghers of Coimbra. The Cortes Gerais members of Coimbra hold an influential position within the Cortes Gerais as they represent one of our economic centres. Their wealth holds much sway in the parliament, but fortunately for us, the proposition being discussed will benefit them if it passes, so their money is being spent buying support instead of obstructing it. And we get another 5%, so that plays exactly into the hands that I was saying before, that we've now got basically 10% for free rather than having to barter for it. Anyways, back to the point that I was making, I think I'm going to go for an alliance with England. They are a great ally to have to counter the Castilian threat if it ever comes, and also we get a good spread of institutions from them, so I think it makes sense. And we have the alliance. And also the parliament passed. Fantastic news. In hindsight, looking at this now, we could have also allied with Aragon, and they do have all of the different institutions, so maybe I would have been better off allying with Aragon. But no matter, it's done. So we've completed the mission, Influential Merchants. For our trading ambitions to succeed, our influence in our market must be uncontested. The construction of a marketplace and other similar buildings will be of great aid for this task. And we get better trade efficiency and advantage. And we complete the next thing, which just gives us a little bit of extra money. So that's fantastic. So where are we mission-wise? So we need the wealth of the Lisboa market. I'm guessing this has to reach a certain value. That's right. So we're quite close, to be fair. I didn't know that the market value was the value of traded goods, but we're actually quite close. We're only about 10 ducats off, so that shouldn't be too hard to achieve. I'm thinking about sending some troops to discover these islands. But before we do that, let's just try and increase our economy a little bit so that we have a greater surplus when we do actually send people out, because it costs 10 ducats per month, as you can see here. And what I don't want to do is make us have a really tight couple of months whilst these people are out exploring. So I think the best thing to do is to increase our profit for now, and then hopefully try and catch up with the bloody Spanish as they explore the world. So, with that in mind, we're going to build whatever is the most profitable. So I think tools is always good, because tools are used in a lot of industries. So we'll build a tool guild. We'll build something in Santarém as well. Maybe glass. Glass is actually a good shout, because there's both lumber and sand in this province, so they can make glass a bit cheaper, so we'll build glass. Evora is not a bad shout, because we've been increasing the control. This middle area is quite good to build, because we'll get a good yield in terms of tax. So Evora, what could we build here? I'm going to pick a die maker. The reason for that is that if we look here at the Tailors Guild, we can see that we're actually getting a production deficiency because we're not producing a lot of our own dyes. We're actually importing them. So I'm going to make a die maker in Evora. It uses lumber and alum, so there is an argument that it might be better in Santarém, but I don't think we can do everything perfectly, so I'm just going to do it here whilst there is enough workforce. I'm going to offer an alliance to Aragon as well, so it might cause us some issues, but I do want this embraced institution spread, and Aragon are quite technologically advanced, so I think that's useful for us. Accidentally pushed escape there. Okay, I've had a bit of an interesting thought. I was looking at Salvaterra because they have wine as a RGO, and I think there's an argument to try and build as much wine as possible because it looks like the tax base per level is quite high, and I think that would be a good resource to export en masse. Now, this is all a roundabout way of saying if we were to build it straight away, there's not enough labourers because there's no buildings here. So I clicked on here to have a look, and there is the bridge building, which I think might encourage more labourers to move there, but also increases the proximity, so it will increase the overall control. And I've just accidentally clicked it. I meant to demonstrate what it would look like. So we built it. Cool, so we have researched clerical literature, so that will increase the literacy of both the burghers and the clergy, because previously we researched the burghers one. Oh my god, there's too much happening. So, controversial protectionist. Since our advisors started influencing the trade developments in Portugal, internal trade has been strengthened at the cost of curtailed imports and increased state regulation. While the advisors' decision to improve infrastructure have been appreciated, recent suggestions have caused many influential people to question their philosophy. Detractors argue that the king is taking their advisors' advice too readily, and that we should look for mutually beneficial deals with other nations rather than seeking to dominate every area of trade. Their methods have helped us so far, or an administration should facilitate free trade, not restrict it. I think we can take the administration should facilitate free trade, not restrict it, because we're trying to push the legitimacy higher. The prestige is just going to keep coming down over time, and we'll try and bump it up from time to time, but I'm not overly concerned about it. Now, we need to pick a research. So I'm going to have a look at this because it looks like there's quite a lot here, and we will decide in just a second. So the one that's standing out to me is merchant partnerships. So let's have a look what it says. The rising prominence of long-distance trade has led merchants to innovate new ways of making the most of their activities through partnerships. The most common kind is having one partner invest a sum of money in the trading expedition, while the other does the travelling and procurement of goods to be sold after their return. I'm not entirely sure what maritime trade advantage is. Let's have a look. This impacts how much trade advantage a country gets from maritime presence in a sea zone. Okay, I don't think it's actually that useful because we've just done that mission that we needed to bump up our trade advantage, but I'm still going to pick it anyway. Okay, we're going to build another dye maker in Lisbon. Again, we're just trying to reduce this production deficiency because of the Tailors Guild. It's annoying we don't have any natural resources of dyes, but we can artificially make them, I suppose, and that will help to bring this down. Okay, we might shift Beatrice off of control in this area, and we'll shift her somewhere else. Where is the best place to do it? Maybe Beira Littoral. Uh-oh, some big events here. We'll do Beira Littoral. Looks like the control is relatively low, and looking at the tax base of these places, it is relatively high, so we can do that next. What is this here? A schism in the Catholic Church. The schism has struck Catholicism and has thrown the Curia in petty factionalism. Even if the Church has been divided before, this schism seems to be of a different nature. After the death of the last Pope, a faction of Italian cardinals is pushing for the return of the Holy See into their own control, something they have desired ever since the papacy fell under French control. Opposing them, the French faction insists on the new Pope remaining under their control. The demands of both factions seem irreconcilable, and Catholic world is swiftly descending into factionalism, leaving the good Catholic people of the Catholic Church without their shepherds. As long as this division persists, they will have to navigate a world without their usual authority and decide for their own who the true representative of divine will is. God, that was quite a long thing to read. So this is an event, I believe, a situation rather, and my understanding of it is it's just basically that the Catholic Church is I can't get a break. The Catholic Church is competing between the French and the Papal States. So you can kind of see it's color coded here. I don't think it's going to have too much of an impact on us, but we'll see as it pans out. We've also had outdated texts. The clergy seeks our help, claiming that in accordance with our censorship laws we should remove all outdated religious texts that are in circulation. Recently, it was found that decades of small tweaks and deviations in newer versions of our holy texts have led to a divide between those who preach the old word and the new word. This rift is minimal, but the very idea of holy texts deviating from one another is revolting to the clergy. As such, they've asked us to purge all of the older copies, which could lead to instability on account of having to destroy the old and relished copies of local temples. So, what are the options? No deviancy can be allowed. Improves relationship with the Catholic Church or the clergy. Their satisfaction is quite high already, so I don't think we need to do that. Or allow the old books to phase out naturally and we get a bit of stability. That is absolutely the choice. Oh, okay. A Castilian alliance. Who is this? This is the ruler of Castile. He looks so different from what I remember. Maybe it's... yeah, his dad died. Afonso. I'm sure this isn't the same person. Terrible beard. Anyways. The years of the affairs of King Alfonso the Avenger de Borgoña with his mistress have finally shown their repercussions. While his son, King Pedro de Borgoña, may be the legitimate ruler of Castile, his bastard brother, Enrique the Fratricidal de Trastamara, so that fratricidal means he killed his brother, I believe, yeah, he's part of the crown pretenders, has raised an army to claim the throne for himself. This is going to be a bit chaotic, I think. In those times of tension, King Pedro de Borgoña has reached out to the Kingdom of Portugal to ask for our support for defending him against his brother. Of course, we could support them out of the good of our heart, yet expanding our influence in Iberia is not any less alluring. Ooh. So this could be a great opportunity for our kingdom. So what's going on here? So we make the following proposal to King Pedro. Pedro will support Castile. Following effects will happen after. We gain 25... wow, we get 700 gold, and we create an alliance, which we already have anyway. And this is the historical option. It is not about the spoils, but for the glory of combat. So we support them, but we get nothing out of it. Why would anyone pick that option? And we remain neutral. Now, I'm pretty confident that this is the only real choice. We already have an alliance, and it makes them happier with us. Okay, yeah, we have to go to war, but we'll be a bit non-committal. And we gain 750 gold, or ducats. Amazing news. This will be a great opportunity for our kingdom. Castile accepts our conditions. News from Castile has reached our court. The respectable King Pedro has accepted the conditions and has sworn to our new alliance. The alliance that existed anyway. When do we get the money? Pay me right now. So let's have a look at what's going on here, because that gives me a bit of confidence to maybe use our money to go exploring if we're going to get 750 ducats soon. I don't easily know how I can see what's going on with the rebellion. Okay, here we go. So the rebels will start a revolt when it reaches 100%. They're at what? Doesn't actually say, but roughly 75%. So in, what's that, 25? In about a year's time, we will have a war on our hands. So I think it's okay then, with that in mind, to go exploring, because we can hold off for a year with a smaller income. So let's go. Where should we go? So the options are limited to the Azores or the Canaries. Now, historically, I think the Azores were discovered first, and they are actually Portuguese still to this day, whereas the Canaries are Spanish. The Azores will help us get across to Brazil, whereas the Canaries will help us get around Africa. It's difficult to say what's the better option. My gut is telling me Canaries, but my heart is telling me Azores. It's really hard to make the call. I don't think it matters all too much, to be honest. Let's do the Azores, why not? So we'll go from wherever's closest. Barcelos. So it costs 250 sailors, which we have an absolute ton of, and 100 gold, which we actually do have quite a lot of as well anyway. And we'll send Philippe, which is René's husband. He can go and achieve honour and glory for us. Boom. Exploration started. Oh gosh, what is this? Major event in Castile. A pact of caution. Castile decided we cannot make such a promise. The court of France has approached us with a formal proposal. A truce, not born of battle, but of foresight. Though our nations are not presently at war, the tides of the ongoing conflict in France threaten to drag us into its current. To prevent such a fate, they offer gold and the promise of peace. Their message is clear. They seek no quarrel, only distance from entanglements that might yet unfold. The question before us is whether we value caution over opportunity. Our advisors support the notion that such a gesture may yet be a form of diplomatic play. Indeed, King Jehan the Good de Valois could possibly wish to secure his border against King Pedro de Borgoña in preparation for a military campaign elsewhere. Oh, kind of pointless telling me that because we didn't actually have any choice. I think this was an event between France and Castile, to be honest. And we've just completed a mission. And we have too many relations because of our alliances. So let's deal with the mission first. We have completed the wealth of Lisboa just because we've built up some of our industry. And we've completed the next one. Gain 10 navy tradition. So I'll have a look at the missions in just a second. And we have too many relations. So what can we do about that? It's quite bad actually. It impacts our crown power quite extensively. So we do need to address it. I think we're going to have to cancel the alliance with Aragon. I don't want to cancel the one with Castile. I don't mind too much cancelling with England, to be fair. It's between these two. Can we cancel with any of them? We don't have a diplomat, but we could technically cancel it, and it will really irritate them. So, I think Aragon's the safer of the two. Not that I think either of them are actually going to attack us, but Aragon, as far as I know, is allied with Castile, which I think means that they won't attack us, because if they attack us, I think Castile comes in on our side. At least I bloody hope so. Maybe it's safer to just destroy the alliance with England. Maybe that's the play. I'm not sure what to do. I'll have to wait until we've got the diplomats and then we can go from there. Oh yeah, I meant to have a look at the missions, didn't I? I forgot to do that. So, wow, we're almost near the end. So secure the sea trade, we've done that one actually. Expand into new markets. So we need to be present in 6 or more markets. Now I think the way to do that is to build locations that provide us with trade capacity, I think. I'm not sure. So if anyone knows, let me know, because I'm not entirely sure what this mission is, if I'm honest. Although I will try and get merchants in the other markets somehow. I'm going to lean with my gut instinct, which is building buildings that give trade capacity. I think that's probably what we'd have to do. Blanca de Comborn moves to Portugal. My god, she was ugly. She looks alright now. Her hair hadn't loaded. A member of the Castilian Ricahoimbria, Blanca de Comborn recently crossed the border into Portugal and joined our court. The reasons for this are not certain, but it is most for sure a disagreement with the policies of the decision makers of Castile. Welcome. So we're just going to keep building in Lisbon to make sure that we are continually developing the capital. Obviously, got to bear in mind that we might get hit by an earthquake again, but it being our capital means that we want to try and develop it as much as possible. So what might we want to build? Maybe another dye maker, because we can see that this deficiency has decreased now from 11% down to 2%. So we'll build another dye maker. And we'll build a distiller's guild in Evora because it's got quite a good production efficiency bonus due to the wheat. Disorder. Not everybody agrees with our religious doctrine. Some people are complaining loudly, calling our approach to modern ideas narrow-minded and arguing that clinging to ancient philosophy is regressive nonsense. Alas, some might have to burn. 12 stability, that's great, isn't it? You can see the control is building up quite nicely though. I think I am also going to build the royal court in the capital. It's really powerful. 10% crown power, 2% efficiency of the cabinet. Is quite expensive, but it is a really good building. So we'll build that as well. And off we go on the exploration. We wish them good luck and Godspeed. And our grandson, Joao, appears to be a bit of an idiot. So we're going to have to try and do something about that in the longer term. But I don't think there's any point giving him a special education because he just sucks at being able to learn anything. Complete idiot, and there's very little that can be done to get them a decent future. My god. Clash between Figueira da Foz and Vila Viçosa. Apologies if I mispronounced that. The people of Figueira da Foz, staunch supporters of the Langres, have recently clashed with Vila Viçosa, avid followers of Rome. I think that's actually Long, not Langres, but anyways. Both factions have now petitioned King Pedro to take a clear stance on either side. Okay, so we're going to have to compare and contrast the two locations. So Figueira's here, and Vila Viçosa's down here. So we can pick either one, and it just pisses off the other one basically, and improves control in one of the locations. So control's quite bad in Villa anyway. We might go for Figueira. I don't think overall we have a strong stance on the schism, so we will just go for the one that gives us the best advantage. And we have researched merchant partnerships, so we'll need to pick another advance. I think stability investment makes good sense, maybe Inquisition law as well, but for now we'll do stability and then we'll have a look at the Inquisition. So, adopting a mandatory church attendance policy will emphasise the importance of our religious values and beliefs, and will minimise the costs of maintaining law and order. Reason for picking that really is it just means that we can spend less on increasing the stability. Stability is always going to be useful for us, so having a bit more will be helpful. And the Castilian civil war appears to kick off. The strife between King Pedro de Borgoña and King Enrique the Fratricidal de Trastamara has ceased, just to be replaced with a hot civil war of the Crown of Castile. Either sibling has prepared their side of the stage, alliances were forged, troops were trained, and now the fate for the Castilian country shall be decided on the battlefield. I think, having looked at the options that we have, we're just going to join the war in its full glory. We did previously make an alliance that suggested we would get paid 750 ducats if we join the war, so I'm hoping that by picking this option we will get the money, or perhaps maybe at the end of the war, I'm not sure. But either way, from a immersive or realistic perspective, we've been friends with Castile and we're going to stick with our nephew. So let's join the war. Love our actions. So we can decide to raise levies, but I'm going to choose not to do that at this stage, just because I would rather use our actual foot soldiers, our professional army, small professional army, to fight this war. If we do need to reinforce, then we can raise some levies at that point in time. Now, with this army, I'm going to bring them down to Aracena and then get them to recover their morale. And we're going to try and take this pocket of Castilian rebels. With our navy, I realise I didn't bring them back to port and the ships are really weak, so we need to bring them into port to try and repair. And then once they're repaired, I think we will also drop them in the Bay of Cadiz and effectively block these troops in. But for now they need to rest and recover because their strength is very, very low. Okay, so looking up at the north here, we can see that the Castilians are doing a good job. Looks like the pretenders are... I thought they were coming into our territory, but they're actually walking along the frontier. That's okay. Their main bulk of the army is in the north, so it should leave us free to clear up this southern flank. So we'll continue to do so. Going to take Sevilla. In taking Sevilla, what will happen is we will actually push this navy out into the Bay of Cadiz. So this will be quite powerful for advancing the war effort, because that should basically cripple the entire naval fleet. Oh god, England has called us into a war with the Lancaster succession. I'll answer that later, whilst we have a look at what exactly that is. I mean, they've got 28 troops. I don't really think I need to go into this war. Don't see how it's going to last very long. So this will be over super quick. I suppose we can just accept and go into the war, but I'm not going to send any troops over, to be honest. Foreign wisdom. This is good Fernando. While the nobility is somewhat perturbed at the idea of a foreigner working for the king, our Castilian minister Fernando de Borgoña, or I call him Fernando 2.0, has been widely praised for bringing fresh ideas and practices to the court. It seems that we can still learn a thing or two from foreign learning. Let's go. So 10 prestige, 5 legitimacy, that's really good. So we're on to the final province in the south. Looking at it, the north is pretty much completely cleaned up. Castile here, taking this final area, so we're not going to bother sending troops up here, we'll just deal with the fort down here. And that should be the end of the war. Same thing for the War of the Lancaster Succession. We didn't get involved. They were fighting 28 troops. I'm not exactly sure why they thought they needed our support, but that war is basically over too, without any involvement from us. We'll curry favours with Aragon. Again, the 1-to-1 ratio makes it somewhat appealing. I think we're trying to cozy up to Aragon as well. Over time they are our ally, so like that. Castile have asked us to improve cultural opinion. Portuguese culture changed their view of the Castilian culture to positive. Yeah, I'm happy to accept that. The war with Lancaster is over. Whilst this is all going down, we'll also build another tailors guild in Lisbon. We'll build something in Santarém as well. Maybe a library. How are we doing for institution spread? Yes. We'll build a library. Oh, the victory of King Pedro. Although bloody, the Castilian Civil War has finally found its end, with King Pedro de Borgoña crushing the forces King Enrique the Fratricidal de Trastamara in a resounding final battle. Of course, he could never have accomplished such a feat without our generous support. We should remind him to uphold his part of the deal. I think this is where we get our money. Yes, although it's less than what was said, it was definitely 750. And they could actually reject it, and we get a claim thrown. I hope that doesn't happen. Time to press our claims. Castile rejects the demands. Oh my god. King Pedro has rejected to meet our demands. This act of broken trust will stain our relations for a century. Those blasted dogs. That is so typical. Oh my god, what are we going to do? I'm not going to lie, that has kind of irritated me. And now I have a grudge against the Castilians. I went in, I gave them my all, fought on their southern flank, lost troops and bled for them, and now they refuse to give me any money. That is really not right. I think this marks high time to open the doors for our very first Conselho. This is an opportunity for yourselves, my esteemed council, to play a part in the guiding hand of the Portuguese Empire. The question is simply this: do we use this casus belli to claim the throne against Castile? They have lied to us, they have demanded that we shed blood for them and then spat in our face, and people are asking for revenge. So if you think that we need to go to war, comment war on the pinned comment for this episode. If you think we need to bide our time, comment peace on the pinned comment. That is all I ask of you. The ballot box is now open. Thank you.